Scallops are arguably the most amazing edible creatures to grace our shores. On the menus of the world's top restaurants, often commanding high prices, they are revered by chefs and gourmets the world over. They are also right on our doorstep and available to all who dare to seek them out. Scallops can be found at almost any depth and prefer sandy or fine gravel seabeds. They can be dived from shore or boat, but for anyone just starting out, it is best to avoid areas with strong currents. In the case of boat diving, it is imperative that someone is on board at all times. While they can be difficult to spot, scallops can be found on the sandy bottoms of summer kelp forests, and diving among these is a fascinating experience where a wide variety of wildlife can be seen. Scallops live on the seabed, and you have to be there to have a chance of finding them. There are two options: 1. Scuba diving, and 2. Free diving. Scuba diving allows you to hunt for a scallop for longer, but obviously requires specialist equipment. Free diving requires some practice and limits the diver's search time to just one breath. However, with no equipment and no limit on the number of dives, there is great flexibility in choosing where and when to go underwater. At Ferrer, we do both, and while scuba diving will usually yield more scallops, the fun and freedom of free diving is hard to beat. Just don't forget a good, sturdy net. Scallops sit in shallow depressions on the seabed, filtering through their almost open shells. This is a telltale sign. As you move carefully along the seabed, look for a faint outline in the sand. You may even see an outline just outside the opening of the shell. Pick up the scallop and place it in your net. It may sound strange, but scallops can swim by opening and closing their shells rapidly, so a firm grip is key. The legal limit for scallops in the UK is 11 centimeters across the shell. It's useful to have a reference ruler, as things look about a third bigger underwater. After some time exploring the cool depths of the sea, hunger strikes. Luckily, fresh scallops don't require much preparation and make a great snack. First, the scallops need to be opened and cleaned. To do this, take a knife, a diving knife is perfect, and slide it all the way in at the hinge of the shell. Then, with the knife pressed against the flat side of the shell, slide it along to sever the muscle. The shell will now open to reveal the plump meat inside. Next, remove everything except the meat and the orange coral and clean the inside of the shell. Scallops, when fresh, are great raw and can be eaten whole or sliced and seasoned with a little sea or citrus or even a splash of whiskey. If you like to cook your shellfish, start with a small fire on the beach. Next, place a small knob of butter on the washed, concave side of the shell and place it on the fire. When the butter starts to foam, add the scallops and cook for about a minute on each side. Serve hot. A splash of white wine, or saffron, or spicy sausages like chorizo or nduja can be added to enhance the flavor. Scallops are a variation of the saltwater clam. Many people see scallops on the menu at their favorite seafood restaurant. However, there are two types of scallops: bay scallops and sea scallops. The majority of the time when you see scallops on the menu at any restaurant, they are sea scallops. Sea scallops are much larger than bay scallops and are much easier to farm. Therefore, almost always, if scallops are on the menu, they are likely to be sea scallops. This distinction is important in the world of scallops. The scallop season 1 mentioned earlier involves bay scallops. Again, they are much smaller than sea scallops, but they are much sweeter. In addition to the delicious meal that a day of scallops can provide, they are also a great treat. I often liken scallops to an Easter egg hunt for both adults and children. Hunting for scallops is pretty simple. Just like hunting for Easter eggs, just go out and find them. It's really that simple. There are designated areas in Florida that are known as hot spots for scallops, mostly along Florida's nature coast. Your best bet is to head to one of these areas of Florida like Homosassa, Crystal River, or Steinhatchee. These areas of Florida have plenty of scallops for everyone year after year. Sure, some years are better than others, but typically a limit of scallops can be found. If you spend any time near the nature coast during scallop season, you'll almost certainly hear the term scallop limit. This refers to your legal limit of scallops for the day. The current legal limit is set at 2 gallons of whole scallops, meaning in the shell, per person per day, or 1 pint of scallop meat, clean scallops, per person per day. There is also a daily bag limit, which refers to the total number of scallops that can be caught per boat. Currently, the bag limit for scallops is 10 gallons per boat. No more than 10 gallons of whole scallops can be caught per boat, regardless of the number of passengers or the size of the boat. The 10-gallon limit is often what is meant by your catch limit. Finally, scallop season typically runs from July 1st to September 10th. However, you should keep up with current regulations, as the season often changes from year to year, plus or minus a week or two. Scallop fishing gear is quite different from your traditional tackle. No amount of rods, lines, baits, and weights will help you catch scallops. The only way to catch scallops is to get out in the water and chase them yourself. Experienced scallopers usually have a good set of fins, a mask, and of course a net bag. With all your gear, snorkel along the surface, usually 3 to 6 feet deep, in search of the elusive scallop. Scallops move in a backwards flapping manner, much like lobsters. However, most of the time, the scallop will be right in front of you, ready to be caught. There is no secret method to catching scallops like there is with lobsters. Just pick up the scallop and put it in your net bag, and keep kicking those fins. The key to finding your limit of scallops is to cover as much ground as possible, so keep those fins moving while you scoop up the scallops. I will usually try to catch the scallop from behind, as on rare occasions the scallop will start swimming away when it sees your hand approaching. It doesn't take many times of getting your finger pinched by a scallop before you learn this trick. Take my word for it, and many other scallopers who you can hear screaming in their snorkels when they get pinched. Once you've reached your limit of scallops, it's time to clean them. Cleaning scallops is typically a more difficult and time-consuming process than catching scallops. As you can see from the picture, the inside of a scallop is pretty messy. There's no fancy way to say it, but basically you need to remove the guts and keep the meat. The little white muscle inside is what you want. Everything else is trash. Most people will catch their scallops and then head back to the marina, dock, boat ramp, wherever, before cleaning their scallops. This is why during scallop season you'll see people sitting on shore, docks and boats shucking scallops, and even a few young entrepreneurs offering to clean your scallops for a small fee. This is my preferred method. By placing the scallops on ice before returning to the dock, you give the scallops time to open up. Scallops will close up on their own when you catch them, most of the time, as a defense mechanism. Placing them on ice and giving them time to open up will save you a lot of cleaning time when you get back to land. The method of cleaning scallops is an ongoing debate between veteran scallopers and novices. Vacuuming scallops may sound strange, but it really works. Of course, you don't want to grab your mom's 9-pound Orec vacuum. Instead, use a small shop vacuum like this one, also known as a wet, dry vacuum. A small shop vacuum will work like a magician and suck out the guts of the scallop, leaving you with just the pearl meat. The manual method works pretty much the same as the vacuum method, except you do everything with a spoon. Pulling out the guts is simple and they pull straight out, leaving you with just the meat. Check out the video at the end of this post to see it done. The best way to cook scallops is another controversial topic. There are countless recipes for cooking scallops. Until recently, our favorite way to cook scallops was to saute them in garlic and olive oil and then add them to pasta with Alfredo sauce. Now we have discovered the art of grilling scallops. In my opinion, grilling scallops on the half shell is the best way to cook them. The meat is so tender and the flavor really shines. One thing to keep in mind when cooking scallops, whether grilled or sauteed, is not to overcook them. They only need a few minutes between each side. Overcooked scallops are tough and, well, they are bad. The most important part of scallop season is to be safe and have a great time with friends and family. As I mentioned, it is a great family event and can even become quite competitive for competitive families, like mine. For families without a boat, there are plenty of fishing guides who will take you scalloping for a day. Honestly, if you haven't spent much time exploring the Florida nature coast on a boat, you're better off hiring a guide. The limestone bottoms of the rivers, Gulf of Mexico can really do some damage to your boat if you don't know where you're going. I speak from experience on both fronts. I used to run scallop fishing tours, one of the many hats I've worn in my pursuit of this travel blogging career, and unfortunately, I've found that limestone bottom with my flipper a time or two. Save yourself a few $1,000s in boat repairs and hire a guide if you have any doubts about navigating the water. Located in West Florida, Crystal River scallop hunting is one of the most popular summer activities. Florida Bay scallops are bivalve mollusks with a hinged shell. Scallops live in seagrass beds and shallow waters and are primarily found in specific locations on the west coast of Florida and the areas near Crystal River. The scalloping season in Crystal River is only from July to September, and the area is famous for its scallops and manatees. Scallops move around during the day, and the seasons can also affect their numbers, depending on various environmental factors. Located in western Florida, the Crystal River area is surrounded by pristine natural beauty with more than 30 streams flowing into the river, making it one of the best scalloping locations in the world. Crystal River offers a list of fun family activities, including the Crystal River National Wildlife Refuge for manatees, plenty of water and outdoor activities, shopping, and cultural activities. When planning your hunt, pick up a Crystal River scallop fishing map so you don't waste time exploring locations that aren't suitable for scalloping. Make sure you're in season and always pay attention to changes in the weather. If there are any storms approaching, it's time to call it a day. Scalloping is an easy, fun activity for the whole family, and a cheap option for dinner. Follow these tips to prepare yourself for your first scallop catch. Once you have your licensed number of scallops, put them on ice as soon as possible to keep the meat tender. This also helps to open the shell a little. You can use a scallop cleaning service to clean them properly, or you can do it yourself with a scallop or oyster knife. Open the shell completely and cut out the muscle. It may take a little practice to keep the muscle intact while removing it. Once the meat is removed, put them on the stove and fry them. Scallops are generally safe to eat, have a nutritional profile that includes trace minerals and protein, and are low in calories whether sautéed and stir-fried or mixed into gumbo. Scallops are a delicious but expensive seafood. So it's important to know how many to buy if you're serving scallops at a dinner party or for your family. According to the USDA, cooked scallops will only last 3 or 4 days in the refrigerator and are still better when cooked fresh. The last thing you want to do is spend too much money only to end up in the trash. The first thing you should know is that there are 2 types of scallops commonly sold: sea scallops and bay scallops. Sea scallops are typically larger, measuring 1.5 to 2 inches in diameter. By comparison, bay scallops are only about 1/2 inch in diameter. You'll get about 20 to 30 sea scallops per pound compared to 50 to 100 bay scallops. If you're buying larger sea scallops, plan on buying 3 or 4 per person. You can scale this amount accordingly if you are dealing with smaller scallops, so if you are buying bay scallops, plan on buying 12 to 16. For a dinner for two, buy about 1/3 pound of scallops, regardless of size. Likewise, 1 pound of scallops, whether sea scallops or bay scallops, will serve a dinner for 6. Besides quantity, there are other factors to consider when buying scallops. First, you should be on the lookout for discoloration, a sign that the seafood packaging may be broken. Oxygen causes scallops to discolor and spoil quickly. Odor is a clear sign that scallops may be past their expiration date. While seafood naturally has a slight fishy smell, your scallops are likely spoiled if they have a particularly strong odor. Likewise, scallops are sold both fresh and frozen. If they are frozen and have ice crystals inside, they may have freezer burn. Sea scallops are more common because they are often farm-raised, while bay scallops are found in harbors on the east coast and other areas. If you plan to sauté your scallops, consider buying sea scallops because their larger surface area helps them sizzle better. Bay scallops are often served in stews and gumbo. In addition to the type of scallops you buy, you should also consider the difference between wet-packed and dry-packed scallops. Wet-packed scallops have been treated with additives in the brine to extend their shelf life. Meanwhile, dry-packed scallops are not treated, which is the type that many people prefer. The problem with wet-packed scallops is that the brine can affect their flavor and make them more difficult to cook. Scallops are usually sold by the pound, which means you are paying market price per pound. Of course, some grocery stores sell them pre-packaged or frozen, but for the best quality, head to the fish market. The number of scallops you get per pound varies and is denoted by a number preceded by a U. For example, if you have 20 scallops per pound, it is represented by U20. As the saying goes, you get what you pay for, and the price of scallops varies depending on how they are caught. Diving scallops are considered the rarest and therefore most expensive on the market because they are hand-harvested from the ocean floor, ensuring a high-quality product. Less than 1% of all scallops caught are classified as diving scallops, making them sought after for their quality. Meanwhile, most sea scallops sold in the United States are farm-raised, meaning they are raised on farms. If you are looking for wild scallops, look for the term wild caught when shopping for scallops. According to CBS News, the dwindling supply of scallops has caused prices to rise over the past few years, from an average of $20 to $25 per pound. The number of scallops harvested has dropped from 60 million pounds in 2019 to about 34 million pounds